In this episode, I'm going to tell you everything I know about warped records, and we're going to show you how I took this record that looks all wobbly like this, and we made it look like this. Beautiful, beautiful job. So stay tuned. Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. So a question that I get all the time is how to flatten records. I've mentioned it sparingly in my videos before about how, if something needs flattened, I can usually kind of figure it out. And so I have methods of, for many years I've tried to figure out, crack the code on how to flatten records. And so now I've got a record flattening machine. It does a really good job. We're going to get into just ways to do it, ways not to do it, things like that. Before we get started, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, comment on the video. We love staying connected with the community. That's why we do this. And then also we have a record store in Matthews, North Carolina called Noble Records. Follow us on Instagram at Noble Records. Huge disclaimer before you watch any more of this video. No, we do not offer this as a service. We do not flatten records for people. We just don't do it. It's a huge risk. Anytime you're applying heat to a record, it's a risk. You're not guaranteed that it's going to work. When I first got the machine, I did it for people. I would charge them like $10 a disc to flatten because it takes all day. Like some people, their record would come out and it wouldn't be flat, and they would be like, "I'm not paying for this. It didn't work." And I'm like, "That's what I'm saying. It don't always work, So, and then sometimes, also we don't want to have the liability of hoping that your record comes out flat and something could happen to the record. It can get a little bit dicey when it comes to stuff like that. So we don't generally offer it. In the past, when people find out I got a flattener, people start mailing me stuff like, "Hey, could you flatten this for?" And I'm like, "No," and I have to mail it back. Don't do that. We do not offer this as a service just because it is a risky procedure and it doesn't always work. We've done it for some friends of the shop in the past, some of our regulars, to say, "Hey, you mind tossing this in there?" And we'll say, maybe. But by and large, we don't do this as a service. So just know that going into this. Don't be mailing me your floppy records. We don't do it. First thing before we get started on how to do it, there's a few things that you need to know about records that are warped. Some records cannot be saved. Some of them can be saved. There's two different types of warps, really, and we'll go over that. You've got like an edge warp, which is a real harsh warp on the edge. Those are 95% of the time unsavable. Best case scenario on those is that you might be able to listen to them without a skip, but you're not ever going to get that completely flat. And then the next is like a dish warp, or some people just call it like a storage warp. And it's like an overall, just kind of like if you left a record in the back of a cardboard box, and it's just an overall, bowl shape, not like a cereal bowl, but it's just got a little bit of it, and so when you throw it on, it wobbles like this on the turntable. Like an edge warp will just dish, dish, dish every revolution, but a dish warp will just kind of. So the dish warps, with the good flattener, you can usually get them out. Got a really good success rate with those, and so I'll kind of show you what we do. At the end, I'll tell you a little bit about like an edge warp and things that I've done to fix them, but those are purely experimental. You never know if that's going to work. So when it comes to record flatteners, there are a lot of the low budget ones, like the cheap ones. I'm not going to name any name brands because I have not personally used them, but I've heard from a lot of other people that the cheaper ones, like there's some that you clamp down and you just use pressure. That doesn't really work. You need to apply heat. And the application of heat is very tricky. If you add too much heat for too long, you can and will completely destroy that record. The good thing about like a really good flattener is that it regulates that heat. That's the biggest sweet spot. That's the secret sauce, is regulating the heat. So what it will do is it will heat the record up very slowly and to a reasonable temperature where it will just kind of have some give to it for an hour and a half or so. And then you could set it on how long you want it. If it's not that bad, you can do it for like 30 minutes or an hour, I think. And then it heats up for like an hour and a half, and then it gets to where it's completely pressed down, completely flat, and then it will cool off for another hour and a half. So at the end of that time, you've got a flat record. So if you pull it out of the flattener and it's not done cooling off, you'll warp it worse than it was ever warped in the first place. So, but a key and most important thing about this video is if you add too much heat, you will destroy the record every single time. Another thing to consider is anytime you add heat to a record, it's a risk. Anytime. You know, even this flattener, which has like a very high success rate, it's a risk every time. That's why we don't offer it as a service, really, is that I don't want to put somebody's prized record in here and cook it, you know, because it has happened. It can happen. This one, like I said, I mean, 99% of the time it's fine, but sometimes it don't work out just right. You know, the different types of vinyl are made of different things, and they react differently to certain heats. So it is always a risk. Secondly, like with the edge warps, and sometimes with the wobble, if heat has been the reason that they're warped, so if heat caused the warp, then that may have compromised the grooves. So sometimes it doesn't matter how flat you get it, you're still going to hear a shh, shh, shh every revolution because that groove has damage. Sometimes it's that way, sometimes it's not, but it's worth mentioning that with a lot of edge warps, even when I do get the edge warp to where it'll play without skipping, you still hear some groove damage from the heat. So that's one thing to consider. So I feel like that's a good introduction to flattening records. I've seen a lot of different methods. I've tried a lot of different methods. The first time I ever tried it, it was an Eagles Greatest Hits record I found at Goodwill when I was about 10 years old. It was a real bad edge warp. I heated it up with a hairdryer, stacked it under a bunch of books, and it flattened, and I was able to listen to it, and I was thrilled. So, you know, it can be done like that. That's the way I used to do it, is I'd heat it up with a hairdryer just to where it would get to where it had a little bit of give to it, and then I'd stack it under a bunch of books. It could sometimes work, but that is like real dangerous, real risky. Would not recommend it. But I've tried a bunch of things. You know, you got the panes of glass method, which you put them in between two panes of glass, put them out in the yard, let them cook in the sun for a little bit. Again, extremely risky. I would not ever try that method. I've seen people put them in the oven, you know, with two panes of glass in the oven. That's something I've never tried, but that seems insane to me. So anyways, really, I think the best and only method to use is a really nice flattener like this. I know that a lot of record stores have them. A lot of record stores will let you throw yours in there maybe. If it's something that someone bought from here and it's got a warp in it, you know, I'll always say, hey, you know, you can return it or we can throw it in the flattener, either way. So, you know, it's good to have for if we buy a collection, and sometimes there's a couple that have a wobble in it, or even sometimes a brand new record will have a little bit of a wobble in it. So it's good to have in that regard. But as far as taking someone else's record and throwing it in the flattener, that's something that we really don't do. So anyways, let me show you the flattener, and let me show you the different types of warps, and we'll try to cook one for you to show you what it comes out like. Real quick, wanted to tell you guys about kind of what we do. Every month we have these exclusive releases to where we take all these really rare records that are almost impossible to find and afford, and we work with other labels and stuff to do exclusive releases for you guys so they can be affordable, high quality reissues. The one that we did last month is Dragonfly. We only have about 10 copies of this left on the website, so if you want it, you better hurry. But it's on this green and black vinyl, really good sounding, psychedelic blues rock type stuff, amazing. Another one we have right now is Brotherhood of Peace Cut and Loose. This is some great southern rock from North Carolina. It's raw, it's gritty, it's got some great guitar solos. This is an absolute fantastic record that you don't ever hear about. And finding originals are really hard. And we have a record called Cold Sun that is up for pre-order now. It should be shipping by next week. It is an absolutely fantastic unknown psych record that was unreleased. If you like the 13th Floor Elevators, the Golden Dawn, things like that, it is an Austin, Texas psychedelic band. It's up for pre-order now. It's amazing. It's called Cold Sun, and it is phenomenal. Those pre-orders are almost sold out as well. So jump on those and enjoy it. But the one I would recommend most, this is Samuel Prodi. It is an outstanding heavy rock album. If you like Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Edgar Broughton Band, things like that, this is in that same realm. This is our exclusive release on Purple with a little tinge of red. You can only get these from us. Check it out. The link is pinned in the comments and in the description of this video. This is kind of what we do. We also have a label. We're going to be putting a bunch of stuff out over the next few months. So our main goal is to shine a light on records and bands that never really made it but are really, really good. If you like classic rock albums and you're kind of used to all the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Pink Floyd stuff, and you're looking for something else, a lot of these records can be hundreds of dollars. So it is our goal to facilitate really high quality reissues at an affordable price. So if you like what we're doing, follow us on Instagram. We have a label page called @NobleRecordLabel. On that page, we post pictures of the bands, their equipment, the process of making the records, all that stuff. So yeah, have fun with that. All right, here we have our little record care station in the back of the shop. This is our record flattener. This is our record cleaner. It's a KL Audio. Great cleaner. So anyways, this is called the Orb. That's what we have. You just basically open this top up, load a record in on top of that mat, shut her down, and clip it tight. So that the lid on this thing is weighted. It's probably 5 pounds. Make sure it's turned on, and then on this side you can choose whether it's a 7-inch or a 12-inch, and then you put in like how long you want it for. 120 minutes is the max, and that's 120 minutes to heat up, and then another 120 minutes to cool down. All right, so here's the one we are going to be performing operations on today. This is a Simple Minds record. It has got a really good wobble on it. Good candidate for the surgery. Here we go. This is after. Very good result on this one. Pretty much totally flat. You can see a little teeny tiny bit, but not much. So that's a win-win. Here's another one. This is not quite as bad. This is a copy of Physical Graffiti. It just has a good little dish warp to it. That's what you call like a storage warp. But yeah, we were able to squeeze another one in. So that is what the before looks like. And afterwards, it came out pretty good. Again, you might be able to notice just a little bit, and you can cook it twice if you want, like flip it over and cook it on the other side, but I think that's a win. I probably wouldn't cook it again. All right, guys, we are back at my house. I wanted to pull out a couple albums that are edge warped just to show you what that looks like. I'm sure you guys have all seen it, but these are both albums that are really rare. They're super rare first pressings that are almost impossible to find, and so I've kept them. I've not found a replacement copy. And they're just like, both of these are like retail $400 or $500. And so I've run them through my machine. I've done everything I possibly can to get them to flatten out, and they both play without skipping. But I'll show you what I mean by you cannot with the edge warp. This is best case scenario what I'm about to show you, and it's not great. So check it out. So this album is Tim Murphy, Poets Need the Rain, fantastic like folk psych album. And you can see the warp right there. Can you see how like in those grooves they look a little off? That is where the edge warp is. And so you can always hear a whoosh when it goes over those grooves. So this is what it looks like when it's playing. You can already tell just that real harsh warp. But with it, there's going to be a jiggle. And you can still hear a whooshing sound when it's going. I can't play the music because I don't want to get copyright flagged, but that's kind of what it looks like. This is another one called Burnt Sweet. Found this somewhere for, I think I paid $1 for it, but so it's not a huge loss. But you see how it just still has that lump and you can't get it out. The problem is because in that one area, the warp is so pronounced and it's so sharp that it's hard to apply heat to just one area. So you have to apply heat to the entire record. It's hard to centralize the heat and the pressure to that one point to flatten it out, if you know what I mean. All right, see what I mean? Both of those are tremendous records, and they're both really, unfortunately, warped to the point to where I don't think that they will ever really work without a little bit of a sound and wobble of the needle. It's fine. It's all right. It's nice to have copies, but it's because that warp is so pronounced in that one area. Like I was saying, you can't apply heat to just part of it. You got to apply heat to the whole record, and that requires like a lot of heat to bring that down a little bit. One thing I have done with the edge warps is I have, which this is, if you have this machine, you can kind of fiddle around with it. So you can put, there's a mat, you can see where the mat is under the record, and you can throw like a couple business cards under there, and then put like a weight on the top of the, after you close the machine, put a weight on the top, just on the edge that is on, and that will apply more pressure and heat to that one area. And it can help, but it can also totally destroy the record. So that's like totally experimental. If you are wanting to try it and fiddle around with it, that is just if you got nothing to lose and it won't play without a skip and all that stuff. So that I would use with extreme caution. I definitely would not recommend doing it that way. In summation, if you have a warped record you're trying to get flattened out, there's some at-home methods. There's some cheaper flattener models, but you kind of get what you pay for. And if you don't want to pay, like I can't remember how much those cost now. I paid in 2019 or 2020, I think I paid $1,000 for that machine. And it has definitely made me my money back, just because we buy thousands of records a month. And so there's always some that are a little bit warped that can be fixed that helps. So I've definitely made my money back. It's definitely worth it if you have a store. My advice would be call around your local record stores, see if they have a flattener, see if they would be willing to flatten it out for a fee if it's something that you got to have done. I have heard that some stores charge $5, $10 a disc. Some stores charge $60, $70 a disc, which, wouldn't really be worth it. But I've heard different stores charge different amounts, but that's just kind of the best way to do it if you want to get a warp out. But my advice to you is if it just wobbles a little bit and it's a record you like, if it plays, don't worry about it. That's what I always tell people. Like, as long as it plays and it's not going to affect your needle, it's not going to make your tone arm jump or anything, I would just leave it alone. I mean, that's just my opinion on it. If it doesn't affect the sound, if it doesn't affect the play, most warps really are just a little annoying. They're just a little bit of room. So that would be my advice to you. But anyways, thank y'all for watching. I hope you guys learned something about warped records. Let me know in the comments. Leave me a comment. Subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. But yeah, thanks so much.